I kicked in the door, I yelled my commands. The children they cried, but I got my man. They took him away, a bag on his head, away from his family and friends. They took off his clothes, they pissed on his hands. I told them to stop, but then I joined in. We beat him with guns and batons, not just once, but again and again. A hero of war, yes, that's what I'll be. And when I come home, they'll be so proud of me. I'll carry that flag to the grave if I must. It's a flag that I love and a flag that I trust.
We have quite a few people in Parliament who stand up for our views. Well, it's very difficult for them amongst a very strong Conservative and Liberal Democrat coalition. So it's very important that those representatives here see that we're demonstrating on the streets.
We say welfare!
Welfare! Welfare!
When they say welfare! We say welfare! When they say welfare! We say welfare! Welfare!
Troops out now!
Get the troops out now! Get the troops out now!
Troops out now!
Now!
Troops out! Now! Troops out! Now! Ira, what do we want?
Troops out!
When do we want it?
Now!
Thank you.
Turn around, turn around. There's a banner,
Oh, there's our banner.
Warfare!
Welfare!
Warfare!
Welfare!
Warfare!
Welfare!
When they say warfare!
We say welfare!
When they say warfare!
We say welfare!
Warfare!
Welfare!
Warfare!
Welfare!
Warfare!
Right, what do we want?
Troops out!
When do we want it?
Now!
Damn right. What do we want?
Troops out. When do we want it? Now.
We ought to do a banner job for Nelson's column.
What do we want?
Troops out!
When do we want it?
Now!
Yay!
I think they're about to kick off.
Now, in Lisbon today, David Cameron and the NATO leaders will try to make it appear that they are bringing an end to this war. Now, this talk of an exit strategy is clearly a sham. They're stating that their aim is to withdraw combat troops. Now, note that word, combat troops, by the end of 2014. Even if they achieve that, that period from now till then will be as long as the First World War. Last week, the Chief of the Defence Staff, David Richards, let the cat out of the bag. He said we will need to stay in Afghanistan for 30 to 40 years. That would turn a colonial war into an indefinite colonial occupation.
Does anybody really believe that security and democracy in Afghanistan and in the Middle East can actually be achieved through a US and UK-led invasion and occupation? Back in the 60s we used to say that fighting for peace was like copulating for virginity. Now, we didn't say copulating, but some of my grandchildren are here today. And I think we were right then, and we're right.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank the organisers. You are the conscience of this nation, and you turn out time and time again to say to politicians that when you took us into Iraq and then on Afghanistan, in those votes in Parliament, you lied. You lied. You are a group of criminals, just in the way that others have been war criminals in the past. You are as well. Because they lied. They told us, and I was in the debate in Parliament when it was said that when the troops went into Afghanistan, British troops would hardly need to fire a bullet. Over 350 of them have died, and tens of thousands of Afghanis, innocent. They lied. They told us it was to introduce a new government into Afghanistan. They lied. It's the most corrupt government. And they told us it was for justice. And the justice they brought was torture. Now I say this very clearly. Any British minister or foreign secretary, no matter how high that minister served, if they knew and authorised torture in our name, they should be brought before the courts and prosecuted for a war crime.
Because the last time I was at a demonstration like this, I ran the risk and was promised, that I would suffer the consequences. And they promised me 10 or more years in prison for doing what I did. But I followed through and kept going. Thank you. And it's funny, 'cause it looks like, I'm not in prison all of a sudden. And it looks like that they rolled over in the 11th hour. And I'd say the role of a coward has been thoroughly recast in this drama. This war for Britain and the USA is already lost. In spite of both countries telling us the opposite. Yet the cowardly and spineless people who got us into this slaughter in the first place intend to send young soldiers to a painful and frightening death. Right up until 2014. It defies belief. Cameron and his followers have no intention of stopping this legal conflict. Why won't these sadists go to Afghanistan and help in the fighting? I think it's a bloody good question.
Really well. Thought the speeches were just so inspirational. So.
Where do you see it going from here? Where do you see it going from here?
Oh, I think there'll be more demonstrations. I think there'll be even more demonstrations. We've got to go to one before Guantanamo.
Yeah.
And I just think people are going to keep plugging it until finally someone's going to listen.
And just quickly, what do we want? Troops.
Troops out.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thank you. So, Tim, that blows your anonymity a bit, but how do you think that went?
I think it went well. It was really good. I really like the talks, the march.
Worth coming out on a cold November day, would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Where do you see it going from here?
I think we need to do more direct action.
Yeah.
Really taking the politicians rather than, we need to organise.
Just, what do we want?
Out of Afghanistan.
And when did we want it?
Now!
When?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was militant. I thought there were lots of different people, lots of young people. Needed some more numbers, but something to build on.
Cool. Where did you see it going from here?
Well, back to Norwich, hopefully. But in the long term, I think we need to build a bigger movement. We've got 2 million people on the streets for the opposition to the Iraq War, and I think we need to go that way and get more and more people out.
I think it was a good rally with powerful speakers, putting over the case clearly for the withdrawal of troops, which is what we need to do. We need to get out of Afghanistan now. The longer we are there, the more mayhem is going to be caused, the more deaths are going to be caused, innocent civilian deaths, and also deaths. We need to call the troops to be withdrawn, and we need to impress our MPs, our representatives in Parliament, and also to keep building on the grassroots.
Yeah, I think it was a very good demonstration. I wish there were more people on it, but those who were here were very committed, and they were speaking on behalf of the majority of the British people. Because polls for the last 2 years consistently have shown over 60% and often over 70% of the British people want the troops home now. In what's also added to the fact that this is an immoral war is the fact that we probably can't afford it. It's a question of, do we want welfare, do we want social services cut, do we want essential services provided, or do we want warfare? and the people here today have said quite clearly what their choice is. And we've got to bring that home to the three main parties in Parliament, who are no longer representative. Well, I think we've got to carry on doing what we're doing. I think there will be people examining whether there are other measures that can be taken. I certainly think the anti-war movement has to link with the anti-cuts movement, which again is springing up in Britain in greater numbers than the people who've not been very active in recent years. The trade unions are becoming active, students are becoming active, and we've got to link all these groups up to say welfare, not warfare.
Thanks. And finally, what do we want?
What do we want?
Troops.
No.
When do we want it?
No.
Thank you.
I thought it was an inspiring day. I didn't see any trouble. I don't know how many people there. It seemed an awful lot. And I hope there's more of it very soon.
Thank you very much.
I think it was a good idea. It was a good and positive thing to do. It would have been nice if there had been a few more people there, but I still think it was a necessary action, because we still let the government know that we are totally opposed to their war. I think we need to step up the campaign from now. We can't just let it drift. We need to build on the momentum that we have, and we need to link the war in Afghanistan to the cuts in public services. When we're spending £6 billion a year on a war that is morally, politically, ethically wrong, and that we're having public services cut, and that £6 billion a year could be saving our services.
What do we want?
Troops out.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thanks. So how do you think that the protest today went?
Well, it's pretty good. People were lively. There's a certain amount of enthusiasm and diverse, and people from Berwick-on-Tweed, which I thought was quite a sacrifice coming down to London for the day. In every way that we can. Demonstrations are just a part of that. We should get on the backs of our MPs, and perhaps now that there's some mood in the public to fight for public services, I think the links between various campaigns need to be made clear, so that issues like welfare, not warfare, come to the front, and people will understand that there's a connection. The money spent on nuclear weapons or on wars that we ought to be getting out of are funds wasted that should be used on public services. So perhaps
finally, what do we want?
I want a lot. What do we want? Troops out.
When do we want it?
Now.
Thanks very much. So, how did you come to be on the Stop the War protest then?
I heard it from a friend, and I've got friends out in Afghanistan. I've got friends who I pretty much want to see again, and I personally think they shouldn't even be out in those fields.
How do you think today went?
Yeah, I think it went quite well. Turnout was pretty good. Hopefully, message will be heard, but I suppose that'll take a bit of time.
Yeah. Where do you think the movement should go from here?
Just keep going till it's heard, probably heard. Just keep going. Don't go to the extremes of like last week's thing with the students and go and throw the extinguishers off buildings, but I suppose yeah, just keep going and keep going until it's
What do we want?
Troops out.
When do we want it? How do you think today's protest went?
Oh, I think it was a very good initiative. I think it's very nice to keep the pace on. We should never forget what's happening there, no matter what's happening, you know, in Afghanistan and Iraq, no matter what's happening in our country. And I think it's very important to keep the pace on. So if this thing is higher up on the agenda, we can always organize something bigger and better. And the speeches were very motivating and very, very interesting. And I'm also really happy to see more students, basically, to be in the demonstration.
Yes.
And I wish to see some more in the future.
Yeah, we'll be there. Thanks very much.
Little defense, this armory insane, enough to kill us all, then kill us all again. But loud and long and clear, our voices will reply. You call it all defense, you lie, you lie, you lie.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Now.
Yeah.